Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
Okay, you held your heart in your hands 11 years ago when you got your heart transplant.
Mm-hmm.
You're holding this heart, which at the time, this is a 36-year-old heart, give or take, right?
Yep.
And it is not looking good at all. Like, when you're looking at this thing, are you wondering, like, how did this thing even function?
Exactly.
And you're looking at it in your hands, and it doesn't look like it should even have brought you to 36 years of age, but there it is, and it did somehow. And it's like, but the heart of all of the organs, I mean, it is like where life comes from, right? Like that's it. Like,
First, that's what when you go in for an ultrasound, what do you listen for?
the heartbeat.
Why?
It's like the epicenter of life.
You just created with God life.
Mm-hmm.
That's the alarm clock that says, I've put my hand on this, and now it's up to you, but I'll be here to guide you and help you.
Mm-hmm.
You can have me in your life, but the reminder in all of it is Jesus dying. Blood.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's about the blood. Purchased with the blood, bought with the blood, paid the price with the blood. And it doesn't necessarily have to be God-related. It can be anything in life. People bleed to preserve the freedoms that we have. People bled to create the communities we live in, the homes we live in. And we're so comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're so comfortable in the wombs of our mothers and in our world and in our little circle of that, you know, it's hard to actually wrap your mind around what's really going on.
Yes, that is true. And that's where I think, at least for me, certainly pain and suffering is a good way to kind of force you to step back and reassess and think about the bigger picture. And then for me, another good way for that is like to get out in nature.
Yeah.
Because when you really get out in nature, it's something about it, at least for me, things slow down, thoughts clear, and it's like you kind of get in touch with the biggest questions and concerns of life. But to hold like your heart in your hands, like the very center of life.
Yeah.
Like, what does that feel like? Were you filled with like gratitude that this thing is beat up, but man, it kept going for you? Or what is that experience like to hold like the very center of your life kind of in your hands?
For me, from day one, my parents and the entire community, the Mormon culture was, there's a purpose behind everything. So my mindset was already that this life has a purpose. We're here to honor God by keeping the commandments and prepare for the next life. So it was always prepare for the next life regardless, but it was more intense with me. So everything you're taught from a religious standpoint, the heart of what really matters most, which is to love and to be loved and to forgive and to be forgiven. In that moment where I'm holding my heart, all of the theology that I had been taught didn't matter. What mattered was, at that moment, I knew God was real. I knew God had to exist. Because my surgeon, who was this remarkable man, a Hindu, believed wholeheartedly, no pun intended, that he could work with God and fix this issue. So even he was invoking a higher power to say he needed guidance. You don't just go in and fix. And even he said, we publish all these papers and we get the glory and the accolades and the credit, and we always sign our names and we're published in the journals of medicine. He goes, but the reality is God's feeding us the information. We're just taking credit for it. So at that moment when I'm holding my heart, it's this is the nucleus. This is the real. This is real. This is God is real.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I've never had this like, is God real or not? That's always been reality. The journey that's challenging is once you know God, how do you maintain that?
Okay.
Because you really get to know him
Yep.
when you're constantly on the deathbed.